Now it's time for our 5 observations brought to you by Community America from here at the University of Kansas Training Complex and what we've observed over the last couple of days. And Matt, I want to ask you about these. The first one you've got is what works and what doesn't.
So Mitchell Schwartz has talked about this. We asked him about it earlier in our interview with him. This camp, we talk about execution. We talk about perfection a lot. But what it's also about is figuring out what works and what doesn't. You don't want to do that on game day. You want to do it out here in practice. So in a lot of ways, this is kind of the time to fail, as long as there's a lesson behind that failure. Think about Patrick Mahomes a few years ago, and Mitch alluded to this as well. He threw a lot of interceptions in that training camp prior to the 2018 season, and some fans were getting nervous. Well, all he did is go out and win the MVP that year. So you don't really want to worry about too many things you see out here in camp because guys are working on things, trying to get better, seeing what works and what doesn't on game day.
And these guys are coached to the nth degree. This is we mentioned on one of our first shows, they not only coach, they teach. And part of this experimentation is that teaching, and Mitch said they go back and review it with their position coaches. Second is the Sophomore Surges. One of the dynamics of this league is to look from year 1 to year 2. There's no staying the same. You're either going forward or going back. What about these guys in their so-called sophomore year?
Well, you talk a lot about sophomore slumps when you're talking about players, but we're looking for sophomore surges this year. And what excites me about last year's rookie class coming into their second year in the league is we saw a lot of flashes of potential, a lot of playmakers, but they didn't hit their ceiling. A lot of these guys have room to grow, and McMullen Hartman's probably the number one guy we want to talk about there. Averages 47 yards a touchdown last year. Are you kidding? On 6 scores. Absolutely unbelievable. But he had only 26 catches last season. So think if he gets 15, 20 more targets in a game, what can he do? How do you extrapolate those numbers? I mean, he could have 1,000 yards with only 30 more catches on the year. So really excited about McMullen Hartman going into his second season as a pro. Juan Thorne, Pro Football Focus all-rookie team member last year. One of the best defenders, or young defenders in all of football in 2019. He's coming off that ACL injury, but we've seen him out here. He has that look in his eye like he's coming for blood. He's making sure that he comes out here and has a fantastic season. So no doubt in my mind, Juan Thorne will build on what he did last year. And then Darwin Thompson, what he said in his presser earlier this week was kind of the impetus for this point. He said last year in camp, he was kind of a deer in headlights. I mean, he was trying to keep his head on straight. What's going on here? Figuring out where things are, just trying to figure out how to be a pro. But now he's coming in, he knows things. He's comfortable. He's diagnosing defenses. He's looking at running lanes. He's not so worried about the big picture stuff. He's looking at the details. And if you can harness that, make sure you focus in on that here in your second year as a pro, you have that foundation already. Now it's about building on that coming into year 2.
Another sophomore becomes our focus of the 5th observation, but first let's go to our next one. And Community America brings you these, but this one's brought to you by the Audubon Society, because I'm going to bring up owls and eagles here. They can see 2 miles away, and they have incredible peripheral vision. It is the value of vision. And we've seen this or talked about it several times, and Coach Reed's talked about Patrick's vision. This is a game not only Patrick sees vertically but horizontally, the entire 53.5 yards of the sideline to sideline.
So at the NFL Combine, they measure things like your 40-yard dash, your vertical leap. You can't measure vision. You can't measure that until you see the guys out on the field. And you're right. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, when these plays are dead or that they look dead, he goes out there and he makes unbelievable playmaking plays that you never forget. And the reason he can do those is because of his vision. So he has this generational athletic ability, but without that killer instinct and that vision on the field, he wouldn't be able to fully put it together. Well, he has that. We're seeing it out here every single day. And another guy is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running back, first-round pick. Obviously, a lot of great attributes there, but Patrick Mahomes said the best thing he's seen out of Clyde so far is his vision. I mean, it takes him to the next level. Clyde mentioned in his presser earlier this week, you can't teach eyes. It's something he's always had, and we're seeing that every day out here at camp.
And it's not just offensive. Those defensive guys, particularly the linebackers and the safeties, to be able to have the vision. And part of the vision is recognition of formations and the like, but the DBs have to have this as well. So really, I mean, Eagles can see 2 miles away. That's pretty crazy.
Amazing.
Next is marathon training. And Andy brought this up in his news conference in that this is such a valuable time because this is also the building of endurance.
So, Mitch, you think about this team in December, and you've talked about this at nauseam in your tweet the other day, how good this team is in December and January. Since 2013, Kansas City leads the NFL in December and January games in points per game, 27.6 points per game, and they're third in points allowed, 18.5. this team closes out games and closes out the season better than anyone. And I kind of liken it to a starting pitcher in baseball whose velocity increases as the game goes on. You want to get better and better. As other teams are going through adversity and they're going through injuries, they can't quite get through the middle of the season, the dog days of the year, this team's getting better and better and better. And we saw it last year more than any. It goes down to the final minutes of the Super Bowl, trying to make sure they can hold on and win this team's first championship in 50 years. But where that's bred is out here in August in camp. And all of a sudden, when you're in the Super Bowl in the final minutes, the other team's huffing and puffing, and you feel good. You can finish that game because of the work you put in months prior out here in training camp.
And Matt, as I put out on Twitter, in the last 5 seasons after December 1st in the regular season, the Chiefs are a phenomenal 22-4. Crazy. Quickly, final point. Opportunity 5.0. We upgrade you every time you watch Training Camp Live. Who's your Opportunity 5.0 today?
Well, another sophomore. Let's go with Rashad Fenton, cornerback. Played double-digit defensive snaps 9 times last season for the Chiefs. 40 snaps in their playoff divisional victory over the Houston Texans. So this coaching staff trusted him enough to put him out there in a big moment. Really stepped up when the secondary was banged up last season. Had that big interception in Mexico City, one of the game-winning plays there. Also had the highest PFF grade of any cornerback for the Chiefs last year in Week 17. So got better as the year went on. He's shown he can play, and now it's about if you get more opportunities out there, how can you build on that? What can you do with it? He could be a real diamond in the rough for this team. 6th-round pick last year, looked pretty good. How can he build on that going into this season?